So, breaking news: Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, the very conservative Republican from the great state of Georgia, tweeted last week, and I quote, "I can unequivocally say that what happened to innocent people in Israel on October 7th was horrific. Just as I can unequivocally say that what has been happening to innocent people and children in Gaza is horrific. This war and humanitarian crisis must end." Ben, this has been a pattern of MTG, I would say, pretty lately, calling out Israel's actions, and I would say, standing up and calling out just the human tragedy that we are seeing in Gaza currently. There was another tweet, basically her defending her statement, calling what is happening a genocide. And she said, and I quote, "When people, innocent people, are systemically being killed for who they are, is that not the definition of genocide?" She tweeted that from a magazine that she told. So pretty interesting revelations here. Definitely breaking with Trump on this, and I would say most conservatives in the country.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's surprising. I would argue that I think this is kind of fits into the pattern of Trump running as this anti-institution, anti-power candidate. And now that he's in there, it becomes a lot harder to live up to that reputation. I mean, we're seeing it with the Epstein stuff. Generally, him just talking about running as the anti-war guy, and then of course the bombing of Iran, which she as well, I think, criticized. But yeah, I would tie it more broadly to that. I think it's that now that he's in power, he kind of has to walk the walk after this campaign, and this is another example of like people just kind of projected their own image onto Trump of who he was, because he will say anything and everything, and we're seeing a lot of people in the Marjorie Taylor Greene ilks of the world like pretty disappointed. But yeah, I mean, I also like, yeah, I guess this is good. It's a little hard to look past him for
Past
prior
comments.
statements on Jewish people.
I mean, who would have thought in the year of 2025 Marjorie Taylor Greene would be saying no American should face persecution of any kind because of their identity, not Jewish American, not Muslim American, not Christian American, not white, black, Asian, Hispanic, mixed American, and so on. And so I think it's really interesting to see the arc. And so I see some people on the left that are like, well, too late. MTG is coming to this too late. And I'm like, take a win when you can take a win. When she's, acknowledging what's happening and saying what Israel is doing is wrong and bucking her own party. And I think the president...
We've seen the debate, too, on that exact, like, talking in those terms about more liberals who kind of have come out in the last few weeks more strongly against Israel and for cutting funding. Like, I know the Pod Save America guys, and that's kind of been a common debate. Like, is it too late? Should we just kind of welcome people in when they're there? Or is it a little late to stand up to something that's so obviously you should be standing up to? I mean, do you think that's true as well for like people on the liberal side? Would you agree there? With,
yeah,
like,
I would say the same. Like, and same thing with like Congress people, like Angus King, independent senator from Maine. He came out very recently, was like, I can no longer support sending weapons and shipments to Israel.
And even Alyssa Slotkin, I mean, people, like, she did miss the vote.
Yeah,
I
would encourage our viewers to watch her interview on Breaking Points, where I had high hopes for her before that interview, and then it was like, holy shit, you can't even handle like a semi-hostile interview from someone on the left. That was a little disappointing. But even her, she released an essay about how she probably would have voted no. I probably would have voted with Bernie to not send the shipments.
Well, I think she explicitly said like if I was there, I would have voted no. Like, and she's a very strong supporter of Israel historically. So that was.
But just going back,
I think generally the tide is kind of turning. I think people are.
I think the tide is turning, and we should
be
applauding people who are coming to the right side now. And I think we've been talking about this for a while, just how much how much money we do send Israel, and the weapons we are sending them are not being used in the best manner. And so I think I wanted to share. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So it hasn't aged great, this tweet. I mean, she was constantly, when she was under attack for being anti-Semitic, talking about all these like Jewish conspiracy theories, Jewish space lasers or whatever. She was very often was using anti-Semitism as an attack against Democrats to try and defend herself, including like simply saying that BDS, anything there is anti-Semitic, and I don't think it's aged well. I think good for her, I guess, if you want to say she's come around, but I also think she
And
was
this is a
clearly
tweet
very
from like
opportunistic in the back.
2021 where I also agree with you. I think this is a way for her to attack, Congressman Ilhan Omar. But I
Yeah.
do think it is a little different this time where she is like actively bucking her own leadership in a way. And like going as far to call it a genocide, I think is much more than being opportunistic. I think that's maybe what she really does believe in. And so I want to
Definitely.
take her at her word. And I've seen a lot of comments, actually, people saying, hey, I never thought I'd agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene, but here I
Yeah.
am. And so I think there's definitely a political realignment here. And there's a lot of people in the MAGA world that have been recently super angry with Trump, angry at the
Yeah.
administration over the Jeffrey Epstein files not being released, over his new bill. Now I'm seeing that it's going to cause a 4.1 trillion uptick in the debt, over him just being a complete cuck for Israel, and I think, in my opinion, putting Israel first instead of America first. So I think this is something that we're seeing that's pretty widespread on the right now, at least in the online world. Obviously, I think boomer Republicans will always be, very pro-Israel.
Yeah, and I think it kind of, with all the Epstein stuff and everything you just talked about, just he kind of built this impossible to hold together coalition of people who, like I was saying, projected different beliefs onto Trump. These very wide ranging, like a lot of first time Trump voters, a lot of kind of the Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the world. They all had very different ideas of what a Trump presidency was going to be. And I think we're seeing that it's kind of impossible to keep all of them happy at the same time. I mean, obviously, she's kind of taking a harsher stance against the Republican Party in some other ways we're seeing too, where she was like attacking them for being sexist in a very bizarre quote that doesn't seem to
Yeah,
understand
we
why
have
he
it right here,
pulled the
actually, if you want to read it out
Stefanik
loud.
nomination. Yeah, so she accused the Republican Party of treating women badly, and she at first talks in a lot of generalities, but then she says that Elise Stefanik, who was a New York Congresswoman that Trump, she was actually talked about as one of his VP choices potentially, but she was nominated to be the UN ambassador. And Trump ended up pulling the nomination because it became clear that they couldn't afford to lose any more House seats. And the special election results, I believe it was the Wisconsin Supreme Court race that Elon had put millions of dollars into, were clearly indicating that if there was a special election in Stefanik's seat, there was a chance they would lose to the Democrat. So he pulled the nomination. She saw that as an example of sexism in the Republican Party, which I think is a little bit ridiculous. I mean, not to say there isn't tons of sexism in the Republican Party, but I don't
But
know if
this
this
is
is
the
the best
thing that
example
makes you
of it.
realize there's sexism in the
Yeah.
Republican Party. Like,
Yeah, so I mean, maybe she kind of keeps spinning and I guess becomes an independent conservative patriot party person, but I don't really see that happening. I think she's just gonna kind of be kind of a bit of a maverick Republican, I guess, who still votes for 95% of their terrible bills. So, um, yeah, what do you think the fallout of this will be?
yeah, I think that this is kind of her trying to maybe gain favor amongst the online right. You've seen like a shift amongst the online
Yeah.
right recently, turn against Israel, kind of turn against Trump in certain ways. So I think she is pretty close to the base. So in some ways, I think what she's saying is part of the base. But at the same time, I think we're in a political climate today where if you stand up against Trump on any issue, he will come after you. And so part of me is just really surprised that he hasn't come after her as hard. But I will say she's been very careful in her criticisms of Trump.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is she kind of does this ridiculous thing that all conservatives criticizing the Trump administration do, which is just pretend that Trump himself is a old decrepit man who has no agency, which maybe is true, but they pretend that it's like, oh, his advisors need to be giving him better advice. It's their fault, or they just do anything to pretend that it's not Trump who is the person in charge of this making all the decisions that they end up disagreeing with. So, but we did see Trump was asked about her comments and calling it a genocide. I think you have the clip there if you want to pull it up.
Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has said that what is occurring there is a genocide. Do you agree?
Oh, it's terrible what's occurring there. Yeah, it's a terrible thing. People are very hungry. You know, the United States gave $60 million for food, and it's a shame because nobody, I don't see the results of it. And we gave it to people that, in theory, are watching over it fairly closely. We wanted Israel to watch over it. Part of the problem is Hamas is taking the money and they're taking the food. But we gave $60 million a couple of weeks ago. Nobody said anything about it. Nobody said thank you. But I didn't need to thank you. I just wanted the people to get fed. And we're helping out financially with that situation. It's a terrible situation. So just to conclude, I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank you for being here. This is a great group of people, and it's a good feeling.
Yeah,
Representative
so
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Triple H mugging in the background, trying to keep a straight face.
Bro.
I think he does need the thank you. That has been the clearest MO
Yeah.
of the administration from day one. Is he wants to be thanked and praised for any basic action he does. I do think it's we were talking about this a little bit before. It's pretty funny because clearly I think when he was asked about the genocide thing, Trump doesn't really he's not aware of the whole genocide conversation, especially on the left related to Israel and Gaza. He kind of treats it like she just called it a disaster or something. I don't think he really got the reason why that was news versus just criticizing it. So he's yeah, it is a terrible situation, totally. But yeah, I mean, I think clearly he's just defending what they've done so far. So it's not like this is going to lead to some new actions necessarily. But what do you make of that clip?
Yeah, I think it's exactly what you said. I did think it was pretty interesting for him to say that, oh, Hamas is stealing the food and the aid. And that might be partly true, but I was reading a report from Israel, inside of Israel, that there actually is no credible sources that Hamas is stealing aid and selling it at widespread levels. The New York Times also had a pretty good analysis on this. So those are just some talking points his staff probably gave him that I don't even think he really believes in that strongly.